Hell yeah.
All right, I'm here.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. It's nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
Cheers. This is going to be cool, man. I'm really excited that you agreed to do this.
Yeah,
I'm super into the art that you make, so this is going to be a chance for me to kind of pick your brain, hang out. Do you have a drink? I don't know if you drink.
I do.
Do
I
you
do.
like
I don't
beer?
have one on me right now, but I do.
Okay. Right on. How dare
So
you?
I'm having a beer with you in
Word.
spirit.
Okay, cool. Right on. Well, yeah, this is my little art dungeon, and I've got some questions or whatever, but we can pretty much just kind of kick it. I don't want you to feel like this is like some weird like interview session. So um,
Right.
yeah, it's just gonna be pretty chill. But yeah, I actually have Infected Religion on in the background here. This shit's sick,
Nice.
man.
Nice.
Holy fuck! You made all of that, huh? You did every instrument.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Korte,
I've
fuck too.
I've always wanted to do that. Like I've always wanted to do a band on my own since I can play all the instruments. And so I think the pandemic kind of forced me into doing that
Yeah.
if I wanted to keep playing music.
Yeah.
But the thing that I've found out is it takes way longer to do everything when you do the band yourself. Because it's not like it
Sure.
used to be. I would just record my drums and then my part was done. I was like, oh, well, that was the other guy's now. And it's like, no, I record the drums. Like, now I've got to record the guitar. I've got to record the bass. Oh
I
crap,
mean,
I've got to write the lyrics.
I think there's something to
So
be said. I mean, like, I haven't personally been able to get a full project off the ground by myself. So, fucking much respect to you for doing so. I've always had the desire to do it, but because I play guitar, but I would play bass. I don't have a setup bass, but I do have one
right,
that's kind of messed up or whatever.
yeah,
And like, yeah, it's a feat for sure. And I think that like putting it all together could take longer, but on the flip side, I think like it also could take just as long for a full band to get things
right,
together, like
right,
writing wise.
right.
As far as like writing for your own music, you don't have two or three other people like, nah, I don't know if I like that. Oh, like you know
Right,
what I mean? Like
right,
you don't have that bickering between like you're just like, I
right.
like this. You might have a little, I'm sure, but like it's
Yeah,
probably not like so much where it's like you're like, I'm putting my foot down for this riff, or I'm putting, you know what I mean?
right,
It's like you know what you
right.
want out of it, and you're yeah. But yeah, no, definitely fucking respect for being able to put all that together. The artwork is sick, obviously. Like, so
Well,
let's
thank
talk
you,
about
man.
your art, man. Like,
Yeah, absolutely,
this is what we're
absolutely.
here for.
Yeah,
So this whole thing, this Form Terror Fridays, shout out to Mike from Warflurch. He was the one that did Warflurch Wednesdays, and I was like, I was hanging
nice.
out with him on Warflurch
Nice.
Wednesdays, and I was like, should I just do this like Form Terror Friday thing? Like,
Hell yeah.
see what
Hell yeah.
happens. So I'm doing this, and it's like it's all about just like hanging out and talking about art, getting inspired, um, kind of answering some questions that like people might have, I
Yeah.
have, just to like
Yeah.
help us as artists and
Right.
whatever. So as far as like the art that you make, I love your use of black as your full like as dark as possible shadow, and
Yeah.
I see that a lot in a lot of death metal, but like I feel like you have like honed your process and
Mhm.
your whole like you do things with such conviction. Like I watched video of you inking, and it was just it's refreshing to see just how quickly you hit it and move. You don't
Mhm.
think too hard about it. Like
Mhm.
I have a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit of a thing where I'm like, oh, that line, like I should just kind of fix. But you're just kind of like swoop, move to the next piece or the next little section, and I also noticed the way that you ink is like you have like your full sketch, and I think a lot of people probably it's like kind of not really that uncommon to work in these stages, but for me, like it just feels like there's a disconnect there. So for the artists that don't necessarily take on this style, this way of doing things, I'm just gonna go through like the stages that you've illustrated on your page is like you'll get a full sketch, everything is sketched out, like
Yep.
with the exception of like like little detail
Yeah.
like pencil lines, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to like explain your process, but I'm
Right.
just kind of like, I'm basically like, I'm seeing like a sketch, and then you go in with preliminary ink,
Yep.
like all the line work.
Yep.
And then from there, you go in and you do all the darkest shadow, all of the
Yep.
black, like just solid black.
Yep.
And then from solid black, you get into detail, and
Mhm.
then you surround it with black, and then add more detail with white.
Yep.
Is that about okay?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. I like to I used to not really use an underlying like pencil sketch for a lot of drawings. I mean my style I really like to improvise as much as I can.
Sure.
So even with the pencil sketches that I use, like when I have a pencil layout
Mm-hmm.
for a drawing, I, try to leave myself space to improvise or to like correct. Like
Yeah.
if I laid something down in pencil, I won't erase it like later on, but when I go to lay in like that preliminary line work, I'll
Yeah.
start fixing things and I'll start changing things or adding new things. The most common thing is like I'm gonna move this tentacle over here, even though I drew it this way with the pencil. I'm gonna move like a tentacle over or something.
Sure. Yeah.
And so part of that though, like the way that I do that
Mm-hmm.
comes out of like my very very first like college drawing class like 20 years ago. I was
Yeah,
like
that was
19.
Miskatonic University.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Should have been. No, I was in community college. I was just like, I was just like some 18-year-old kid, and I took my first drawing class. And the very first day, the professor's like, "All right, you're just gonna draw circles today." And everyone in
Yeah.
the class was like, "What?" And he, he gave us our charcoal. We had our charcoal. He told us how to hold it, like not to hold it like we're gonna sign our name, but to hold it like, like a wand or something. And
Yeah.
then he was like, "All right, so I want you to draw circles, but I want you to instead of drawing the circle, I want you to make the motion of a circle over and over and over again. And then when you feel like you've got it, then you lay it down in one go." He basically taught us what's called gestural drawing, which is
Right.
like use hand gestures to make very, very quick movements.
Sure. Yeah.
And basically what he said is like you got to be loose to be tight. Like you've got to learn to loosen up first in order to become tight.
Totally.
And that has been something that was like game changing for drawing for me.
Hell
Like
yeah.
everything from then has stemmed from being loose in order to be tight. Like thinking
Yeah.
about, so even when I lay down like, like small ink lines, I try to do flick of the wrist rather than like,
Yeah, that's what I
really,
noticed.
really
Yeah.
painstaking. Like, I just try to do it a flick of the wrist and then move on.
Right.
And not fuss over it too much because that keeps the drawing feeling natural and fresh to me.
Totally. And you can always go back in and just kind of touch things up to
Yeah.
your liking. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people might get stuck at. Like, they might
Yeah.
just put too much pressure on themselves to, like, actually put a line to paper because it might not look the way that they imagined it in their head.
Right.
But the
Right.
thing is, there's a beauty in, first of all, making mistakes is, like, the best thing you can do to learn, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, making the lines that ugly, you can make some really cool art with that. You just have to embrace it, lean the
Yeah.
fuck in.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of ugly art that I feel like I've kind of made into like a style, but I'm still always trying to progress, and that's why that's part of why I'm doing this is because I want to become a better artist. I want to become, I want to tighten up on some things, and I want to talk to people that I feel like are really fucking impressing me. So this is really a treat to be able to talk to you, get to know you a little bit. What's up, Mike? How you doing, man? Thanks for the fucking the inspiration to do this Form Terror Fridays. Yeah, but so all right, so I definitely I think I've taken that same idea with gestural loose lines, like just pencil lines to find shapes and find compositionally where you want things to sit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's honestly like the biggest thing is don't be afraid to like be like get dirty, get sloppy at first.
Yeah.
But like I think as artists go on, they get tighter as like, even like just doing like quick little sketches or thumbs, like sometimes you can just have like something ugly that turns into something sick, and then other times you're like dead on with what you want. But but I've definitely noticed that you have definitely honed your craft, and I commemorate you, sir.
Thank you. No, thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've really learned, and I try to teach this to my students too when I teach drawing, is like, especially with drawing and especially with painting,
Yeah,
there's like very little that you can fuck up that you can't fix. You know what I mean? Like so much that you fuck up can be incorporated into the drawing.
absolutely.
You try to teach people, and I try to I try to live this myself too, which is
Totally.
like just kind of let go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just make the drawing and let go. And if you do screw something up and it's like beyond saving, oh, it's one piece of paper, one piece of Bristol board, start over.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
not the end of the world, not at all.
Right.
I think what happens sometimes is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make something perfect,
Yeah.
and it's a stupid cliched saying, but I tell my students this too. Like, don't let the perfect get in the way of good.
Right.
I tell them, don't let perfect get in the way of finished. You know what I mean? Because finished
Sure.
is much better than perfect.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen a perfect drawing. I've never graded a perfect drawing. I've never
I
made
don't.
a perfect drawing,
I
but
feel
I've
like
made
a
a lot
lot
of
of
finished
artists feel the
drawings.
same way. Yeah, totally. Like, you can't have your expectations too high,
Yeah,
and I think there's something to be said for expectations in general for whatever you're doing in life.
yeah,
But as far as like expecting yourself to be perfect, I think all artists are constantly like looking at their art and saying it could be better in this way or it could be better in that way. But that's
yeah,
part of being an artist.
yeah, exactly.
Like there was a saying, I can't remember exactly what the quote was or whatever. I was in art school. I graduated in 2013 at UArts
Yeah,
and uh, in illustration, and something along that schooling, there was someone that told me about how if you're like convinced that you're perfect at making the art that you're making, then you're gonna be bored.
yeah.
Then you like you're never done like
Mm, no,
improving as an artist. People are always constantly like pushing themselves to do something more interesting or whatever.
yeah,
That's what part of being a creative is.
yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
it's always like, yeah, it's just something that I have found like, I feel like there's people that are out there that are like, I can't draw, and then there's like people that aren't willing to like make those mistakes and
right,
lean into those mistakes and set their expectations like lower and be okay with those mistakes and just be more consistent, just make more art in general, even if
yeah,
it sucks to you. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And someone's out there that's gonna appreciate it.
yeah,
That's another thing. Like, you never fucking know. Like, you might hate your art, and I think a lot of artists do. Like, sometimes they just fucking hate their art,
right. Oh yeah,
and
oh
then
yeah,
people just love it, and it's one of those weird things. You know what I mean? These like
yeah,
anomalies that it's just kind of funny. But I wanted to talk to you about. Do you ever hit? I mean, I'm sure you do because you're an artist, but I recently hit a creative wall. Like,
mhm,
I felt so stuck, not sure how to go about
right,
making a piece for a band, or
yeah,
like overwhelmed because I had several bands and I was trying to figure out like what to do for this band and what to do
right,
for that band because they were just giving
right,
me free reign. And like,
right.
what do you do when you get creative blocks like that? Like,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I sometimes that kind of that kind of feels like it's on the cusp of happening for me, where I'll have, a bunch of commissions I'm juggling at once, and
yeah,
yeah, a number of them the client will be like, yeah, just do your thing,
right.
and I'm kind of one of those people that I like something to push off of a little bit.
Hmm.
So, you get a range of things. If you work with clients to do like freelance illustration, you get a range. You get everything from just do your thing, we don't care.
Yeah,
Just show us the concept, and if we like it, we'll say yes.
right. Which
All
is
the way
always
to I've had bands literally send me their own little doodles that they want me to
yeah,
try to like,
totally.
fit everything into my drawing that
Hmm.
they've got in their own doodle. Like they've got it all planned out.
Right.
Um, and I honestly, my favorite commissions are really the ones where they're like, so we want a shirt design about this song. You know what I mean? Like they have ones, and
Yeah.
they'll send me the lyrics, and I'll be like, oh, that's something I can push off of.
Hell
Like I
yeah.
can totally work with that. I'll
Hmm.
dig into Lucas Well of like what I would associate with their
Yeah.
lyrics, and then I'll
Yeah.
start, pulling stuff out of there. But yeah, I think whenever I feel like I might be hitting a block, there's
Yeah.
like two things that I do. The
Okay.
first one is I hop on Instagram and I just start scrolling, looking at my favorite artists. Like that's
Nice.
the first thing I do is because if I feel like I'm not sure what I'm going to come up with, I want to see what are other people drawing. What are
Yeah.
other people like artists that I admire? What are they making?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just be inspired to draw just by looking at their stuff. You know what I
Right on.
mean? And that's also like how I push myself as an artist too, because I see stuff on there like I'll see something Caroline Harrison has done, or I'll see
Hell
something that
yeah.
Mark Riddick has done.
Definitely.
And also just like studio artists too that I follow too. There's like artists like Casey Jack Smith and some others that I follow who are
Cool.
just like they're just like studio artists. But I look at their stuff and I'm like, damn, I love that. I
Yeah.
want to do something kind of, I want to pull that in. Let's see if I can try to do something like that and see if I
Yeah.
can make it part of my own work. And so that'll inspire me as well. So like just like looking at other art always kind of helps me get over the block because it'll push me in some direction. And also, I'll just like put on some music. I'll put on something, that I feel like hits the right atmosphere and gives me the right feeling. And then
For
for
sure.
me, when I have the feeling, like images I start to want to put it into image form when I
Hell
when
yeah.
I've got a particular feeling, and then that can usually push me to come up with something.
Right.
And then absolute last ditch, like if that doesn't work,
Yeah.
what I try to do, I'm not always good at this, but I have done it and it has saved my ass in the past. Is I keep a sketchbook of ideas.
Yeah.
Like when something comes to me, it might have nothing to do with, maybe years before a band comes to me. But I've got
Mm-hmm.
this sketch in a sketchbook, and I've been kind of waiting to maybe do something with it. And
Mm.
then I show that to the client, and they're like, "That's good." And I'm like, "All right, cool." So I don't even have to think. I could just do this thing from a couple years ago that I wanted to do and never got around to finishing.
Right on. That's
So
cool.
that's like way last ditch. Like I try to use that as last resort. I try to make sure that when a client comes to me, what they're getting is my response to them in the moment.
Sure.
My
Yeah.
response to their music, my response to their ideas.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think I can agree, especially with the. I think your favorite thing is also my favorite when bands come to you with like lyrics of their songs
yeah,
or like based on a specific song.
yeah,
I I tend to appreciate the idea that people want me to do whatever,
yeah.
but that leaves it a little far open for me to like hone in on things.
Right,
Like I could do so many things, and then I just
right,
end up sketching, and I'm like, do I really want to like commit to this idea? And like, then I try to jump into it, and I'm like, I'm not feeling this. And sometimes it's just you just gotta back off and move to something different. And that's what I
yeah,
ended up having to do recently. But I'm really happy with like I pushed through that block, and I was able to like think about what you said, like look at those lyrics and what does it mean to me, and how and pull from my well, which I want to talk to you about too. Your well. All right. So obviously, I think on the surface, it's easy to see that you're a huge Lovecraft fan, and you pull a
oh yeah,
lot of inspiration from Lovecraft
absolutely,
lore and imagery and ideas that come to your mind from reading Lovecraft.
yeah,
But and which is sick. I honestly haven't read a lot of my Necronomicon, but I do appreciate Lovecraft's work.
yeah,
I really love the monsters that can be conjured in your brain just
mhm,
because like the descriptive ways that Lovecraft lays things out leaves it still open enough for you to like illustrate your own style of it,
yeah, yeah.
which is sick. And I've always appreciated your interpretations of those things. Um,
Thanks.
but what other things do you pull from in your like? What other things are in that well that you
Yeah,
refer to?
yeah, yeah. So I think the biggest one after Lovecraft would be my bachelor's degree is actually in biology. So
Oh hell yeah!
I studied biology as an undergrad before I went to art school. So,
Wow.
um, and I was super interested in any like non-human life form, basically that was weird. Like so, everything from weird like fungus to like weird microorganisms to
Yeah.
like strange invertebrates. and I you know, really paid attention to that stuff when I was studying in school.
Nice.
So any opportunity I had to draw things like that
Hmm.
or to like look at them very, very closely, like
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time really like closely looking at insects. I took field biology classes,
that's
um,
sick.
of entomology classes and stuff when I was undergrad, and that really is one big thing that informs my work. Like I also look at a lot of old like 19th century scientific illustration stuff. So
Nice.
if you get those books that have like just one, it'll be like one 300-page textbook that's all illustrations of beetles, like
Yeah, I have
and look
a
at
I
that
have
exactly.
an
Look at
anatomy
that stuff
book.
because the way that those artists, those guys who they I mean at that time like there wasn't even really like being like a professional biologist wasn't like even really a thing. Like you had to know how to do all this different other stuff. Like you were just studying like natural history or something. So
Right.
all of those people had to know how to draw
Yeah.
because taking a camera out in the field wasn't possible, but taking a sketch pad and a
Right.
pen was something you could do. So they had to know how to draw, they had to know how to use watercolor. And I love looking at those drawings. Like that's a huge influence on me.
Totally.
Is those old ink drawings of, especially specimen drawings of like animals.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that's a big one for me. That's like a big place that I draw from, is because there's so much variation in the
Yeah.
natural world. Like you can find all kinds of different shapes and textures and
Yeah.
weird organs and weird limbs and appendages you wouldn't think of on your own. But when you
Exactly.
go out there and look at what animals have come up with to like get around in the world,
Insane.
there's some weird, crazy shit.
Yeah.
So that's like a really, really big one for me.
I
Um,
want to just totally like tell you that I am into basically everything you just mentioned. I've just
yep,
been so overwhelmed about where to get the influence because like I didn't study it. I wasn't
right,
in biology classes. I wasn't
right,
able to like take that time and really understand like the folds of a flap of an insect or like a
right,
specific like beetle or something. But I am
right.
fascinated by those illustrations, and I'm like I don't know. I'm like googling like images. I'm like being
Yeah,
pulled in these wormholes of Pinterest and like
right,
like real
right,
close up images of like spiders' faces. You know what I
right,
mean? Like the
right.
macro lens spiders,
Yeah,
like like nerves and a brain and like
right.
just fungi. Absolutely, just so fascinated by fungi. It's kind of fueled this world that I've created. This like obsession into blood spore, into the
Right,
art,
right. Yeah, exactly.
all
Exactly.
that
I was
shit.
gonna say, I think that makes total sense.
Yeah. Uh, but I'm still trying to further get, illustrate that. I'm
Yeah,
just at the tip of the iceberg with it because like,
yeah,
and you are super inspirational in my push to get there,
yeah,
and that was another reason why I wanted you to be on this.
yeah.
Because I really find you a giant inspiration to what I want to create. Um, and there are a lot of artists that are doing really cool death metal artwork that are like doing these like full black piece like sections of their artwork that really like make it bold. And for some reason I have this weird disconnect where like I can never figure out which one, like what place is going to be perfectly black.
Right,
And so I've been learning from like looking at other artists how they interpret that. And some people are
yeah,
just like all over. You know what I mean?
right,
Wherever they feel like, and they're just free
right,
flowing, and it does look sick. Like there's cool shit, but you, because you have like taken, like because like it seems like you have like not even on purpose, but like just because you've existed in that world and like taken in all of that imagery and like been around it for so
yeah,
long and read things on tentacles in lore of Lovecraft and like
right,
doing these biology classes, like you can see it in your work. It's very much tightened and like you could see that in nature, but a fucked up world. You know what I mean?
right,
Like
right.
a thing
Yeah,
that could be like you could hold that in your fucking hand, like that gelatinous fucking like crater,
right.
uh, I don't know, covered, tentacle or whatever.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so thank you for the inspiration, first of all.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that are on here that are watching are absolutely inspired by you as well.
Thanks. Appreciate
I just
it.
want to take a second to thank everybody that has joined, that checked out what we're doing. I don't know if everyone's like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or like, I have no idea. I haven't done this a lot. So Nightmare just said solid understanding of light and shadow, and it is very hard. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think it's, for me, at some point you want your training to be like unconscious. You know what I mean? Like you want to move from a point where you have to think about what you're doing to a point where it kind of comes naturally a little bit. And so I think it's two things for me when it comes to the use of solid black in areas, and then wherever like the whatever call the figure is going to actually be. So part of it is just like you're training in basic principles of design, right? What's going to be your positive space? What's going to be your negative space in the image? Yeah. But I also think like another influence on me that I don't always think about but is always there is I went through a period where I really loved looking at electron like micrography, like those really, really close up, you'll see those like close up black and white kind of 3D looking images that'll be like like a spider's foot, or it'll be like the surface of some bacterium or something.
Insane,
and those almost
like what our universe has created.
Exactly.
It's crazy. I'm just waiting.
But those images almost always have a really, really, really stark black background to them. Sure. Because of the way that micrography has to be done. Yeah. And that is something that darkness. Yeah. I love the way that darkness feels like when you look at those images, you feel like you're in an alien space. Yeah. Right? You look at any of those photographs, and you're like, a human can't go there because that is not. Right, that's not human scale, and that darkness always makes me feel like you're in some kind of an alien space. Right on. And I think I try to pull that into my images on some level, because I was making images for a little while when I was in grad school. I was making paintings that were kind of based on those photographs for a little bit, just to kind of experiment. And I looked at a lot of them. My studio when I was in grad school, one whole wall was like just covered. It looked like a serial killer's thing, but it was all just all it was electron micrographs of like insect body parts. You know what I mean? That's all it was. It was a whole wall, and I would use that as like my image bank when I was drawing. So like my other piece of advice too, to as you're like starting out, is to like keep an image bank. Like, go on just go on Google. It doesn't matter. Just Google random shit. Go down the rabbit hole and save anything that you can save that looks cool to you. That's what if it's like pictures of nature, electron micrography of like insect body parts, artists that you like, shit from pop culture, save all of that stuff and keep it in a file on your computer so you can go look through it, because that always will give you inspiration. It'll always give you references you can pull from too. I keep a huge image bank on my computer at all times. Yeah, I'm always adding photos to it.
What's going on? Vinyl disc cassette reel from Russia. Shit.
Nice. Greetings.
Words. Yeah, just want to take a second to thank everybody for watching what we're doing here. If you're just getting in, we're just talking about process. We're talking about inspiration. We're talking about image banks. That's definitely like a pertinent part of being an artist, is having something to draw from, not just winging it all the time. Winging it is great when
it doesn't all have to come from just you. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
It's the mixture of influences you have that make you unique as an artist. That's one thing that people, they think it's like their innate genius, and like nobody is an innate genius. Like it's just your unique mixture of influences is what makes you the artist you are. Everyone's influences are going to be slightly different. Yeah. Everyone's going to have a slightly different style because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the micrology thing is like definitely going to push me to where I think I want to go with my art, because I am fascinated by up close imagery, macro lens imagery of insects, like just fungi, like in general, like even like fruiting bodies you can see and walking around is fucking fantastic. But like but seeing the microscopic world and like seeing like all the little hairs and fucking crevices and like the craters that you illustrate are what fuel me to make like artwork, and I feel like I haven't gotten where I want to go with it yet. So this has been helpful because I want to get there. I am pushing to get there. I want to see the porous skin of the stem of a mushroom. Like I want to put that in my work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's huge. Let's see. I've got a bunch of stuff here that I think I covered, but you and your partner moved from South Bend, Illinois, Indiana.
Yeah.
To Lancaster, PA, and you just did that, right?
Just did that. I'm actually at our friend's house that we're staying with.
Word.
The truck of our stuff doesn't come until Sunday, so our house is empty right now.
So yeah, I was gonna say, if you were actually at your house for dinner, you'd be pizza on a box, that old with some beer.
It would be like dorm room living again for a little bit,
Word. Some mac and cheese in the microwave.
Yeah, exactly.
Some ramen.
It's nice we're staying with friends, so we're having like real home cooked meals and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a big thing. I taught it at Notre Dame for a few years, and and it was it was an interesting experience. Like I am among the students, there are basically no metal heads at all. The kids they're very much into like mainstream stuff, and they're very missed. So it was always a trip for them to come in my classroom, and I'd be like wearing a Napalm Death shirt or something.
Hell yeah!
And I would I'd make them to listen to stuff throughout the semester, and they would sort of pretend not to hear it. Although I remember one summer that I taught, I had a pretty good class. They were kind of fun, and I was making them listen to, amongst a whole bunch of other things, I made them listen to the Vastone Spectral Voice split. And I caught one student who was like really like into EBM. Caught one student like grooving to the Vastum track, because
Groove
it's
City,
kind of an undeniable
groove
on that one. So
Vastum. Yeah.
He was real into it. He was like, "This is actually pretty good." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty good."
Yeah, it's the stomping fucking music of it's the best during a show. I just like to stomp around like a dinosaur in the pit. It's fucking good.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to be different. I'm going to be teaching here at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design this fall.
Holy shit.
So it's going to be a new class I've never taught before, and it's going to be my first time really like getting to teach like art school students, Like our students at Notre Dame, our program was really small. We didn't have a lot of majors in the program, so it was mostly students that were like minoring in art or just taking an art class out of interest in it,
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to actually teaching art students. I think
that's awesome, man. Like I can't even believe that you would take on such a demanding responsibility and be the artist that you are and help, sick bands get their creative, imagery out there. Like there's a lot to be said for that, because I wanted to talk to you about that too. Like obviously now I understand like day job is kind of a weird term at that, like for that, but because like it sounds like you really do enjoy that other side of things.
Yeah.
Whereas like I think other artists, like freelance artists that are like kind of splitting the difference, kind of what I'm doing right now.
Right.
It's a day job. It pays the bills to a certain extent, but their passion is on the other side. You know what I mean? Where they're doing art for like sick death metal bands or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking huge. Sometimes I honestly couldn't handle doing a full-time gig and being an artist. I couldn't keep up with both equally. I'm a part-time associate now, so like at Home Depot, I just fucking
No, I mean I couldn't do it either. I've just taught as an adjunct for the last couple of years, so I'll teach like 1 or 2 classes a semester.
Oh, Okay.
gives
All
me,
right.
I mean, it gives me enough time to also do the artwork too.
Good. Good.
Allows me to kind of, yeah, split the difference exactly. And there
Yeah.
are times when like teaching does just kind of feel like a day job. But the thing for me is I always try to remember that like teaching art also makes me better as an artist, right? Because
Hell
I
yeah.
always have to figure out a better way to teach things, and often figuring out a better way to teach things forces me to find a better way to do it. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? In the first
Hearing it
place.
out
So,
loud too, just saying it out loud,
mhm,
you're convinced like, well, if I'm saying it to these guys,
yeah,
it must
I
be
better follow
true.
my own advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's helped me as an artist a lot to have to try to teach students to do it because it's made me think in a more organized way about the process of making a drawing, right? And it's
Yeah.
made me think really, really long and hard about what are the real basic principles that you need to have in order to make a drawing and how like just about anyone can learn to do it. It's really one of those things that like talent takes you so far, but like hard work and knowing the basic techniques are really like the most important things. You know, I've
Mm.
had students come into my classes who've been like, I don't know how to draw at all, and should I even be in this class? I feel like I'm gonna, I'm gonna uh, just make like crappy drawings, and I'm gonna struggle the whole time. Should I even be here? And I'm like, my
Definitely.
drawing classes are for everybody. They're for people with no, like, I'm gonna assume you haven't even picked up a pencil before. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they're like,
And
okay, I'll stick it out. And I've had those students like by the end of the semester, they're like, wow, I actually really learned a lot. I picked this
hell
up
yeah.
pretty well, you know?
You
Like
can
everybody
also
learns
use that
something.
knowledge, like not even in just drawing. Like you can use that. Like I remember we had like school that they would do like a foundation year where you had to like learn all of these different skills, even if you weren't going to that major. It was interesting and it was helpful, I think, for a lot of people to get their head wrapped around not just one facet of what they're interested in majoring in and
Right,
kind of use that knowledge to apply it to what they did care about, like
right,
learning
right.
like sculpting or like woodworking.
Yeah,
If you're like a video major, like that shit can come in handy later to like make a
exactly.
rig or something in a set or whatever. You
Yeah,
never know.
exactly. You never know.
Yeah.
And like knowing how to do those things also like helps you think a little bit differently about what it is you're doing too.
Yeah.
Like if you understand, for instance, how to make something work in 3 dimensions,
Yeah.
then when you go to draw something later on, your brain sort of thinks in 3 dimensions a little bit now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that kind of helps you as an artist. Someone had asked in here what specifically I've taught.
Yeah.
So I
Scum
usually
Lord
teach
distro. Yeah.
I usually teach intro drawing. I also teach figure drawing, so like drawing people.
Dude,
And I've taught intro painting before as well.
word.
When it comes to like studio classes, I've taught also like 2D design things like that. But my favorites are intro drawing and figure drawing. I love to teach those.
I gotta
Like the
say,
human body is like a
yeah,
whole nother thing.
it's
Like
so hard.
takes a
So fucking
lifetime to
hard.
learn to do it. But just taking like a class, like I've told people, like just taking a class, or if you have like a local museum that offers like figure drawing classes for like 15 or $20, you can go. I always tell people like it makes a huge difference to try to draw real people because that is one of those things you can kind of always tell when an artist hasn't really spent much time drawing like real people and their figures are a little wonky.
Totally.
Just
Me.
learning a few basics, just learning a few basics like helps so much with that.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I love teaching that class. It's a lot of fun. I also love teaching figure drawing because I like to challenge my students to think about not non-humans too in a
Hell
figure
yeah.
drawing context. So I'm like, let's look at artists that are drawing like anthropomorphic insects, and like
Yeah.
this is figure drawing. It's just not of humans. And I think that's also really that kind of opens people's brains up a little bit. Like it doesn't have to be just like
Yeah.
traditional conception of what the human figure. It can be all
Right.
kinds of shit. I like to show
Yeah.
them like stills from David Cronenberg movies and be like, okay,
Right.
so we could talk about the human figure, but we should talk about body horror because that's like a whole nother component. It's like
Totally.
a recent component of thinking about the figure in kind of our modern societies, like
Yeah.
body horror. And it's something I'm interested in, so I feel like I can talk about
Hell
that.
yeah.
So,
I'm absolutely delving into understanding the human body a little bit more, just so I can fuck it up, just so I can make it like weird with growths and things
exactly.
coming out of it, and
Yeah.
but that's just I think that's just me. Like I'm kind of like it is fascinating, but I'm like bored of it in a sense that like I've seen so many excellent artists do it so much better. Like I think like it's easy to just want to move to something that feels more exciting, even
Right.
though like
Oh
dude,
yeah.
the human body is fascinating. It's like incredible, but it's something about like if you look at it like we were talking about a molecular level of the human body, or like just an up close like look at things out, like not totally microscopic, but you know inside where the organs are and like what they look like up
Mm.
close, like
Yeah.
that shit
Yeah.
is inspiring, like so strange and alien
Yeah.
to humans because we only have a perception of what we see with our eyes in it like a daily setting,
Right.
but
Right.
like inside if we could look at our fucking organs every day, like what another
Yeah.
world, like that's
Yeah.
just insane. So I've always I feel like I get a lot of inspiration from watching like documentaries about like like how different organs in our bodies work,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
you know, like nerve endings, veins, things like that. Those are like
Right.
huge
Right.
influences for my work as well. So like, I think, but I think like I would enjoy going back to the figure drawing. I think I would definitely enjoy taking a figure drawing course with you. I was
Different.
ADD as fuck with my
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I try to do too with it, because like when I took my figure drawing class in art school, it
yeah,
was taught as anatomy and figure drawing,
yeah,
right? So the teacher focused a lot too on like learning specific anatomy. Like you had to learn bones, you had to learn muscles, you had to learn like organs that might be near the surface that would affect what you see.
yeah,
And I try like I found out that a lot of my coworkers didn't really teach it that way. They kind of taught it just from the drawing perspective.
hmm,
And I try to bring in the anatomy stuff because I think that shit's really interesting, first of all. And second of all, like you want to know what's going
yeah,
on with the skeleton, you want to know what's going on with the muscles, you want to know what's going on with the underlying organ systems because it helps you
yeah.
understand how the bodies works. You know what I mean? I love to tell them like, like your pelvis is shaped like a bowl because you need something to keep all your guts in. Like otherwise they would just fall out between your legs. Like literally that's why
Right.
it's shaped that way.
Totally. Yeah.
So they understand like, oh, there's like a purpose for all of this stuff.
Oh, of
There's a reason
course.
why things are shaped the
It's
way they are.
so fascinating how much of a purpose everything has in
Yeah.
this world that we live in. It's nuts. I will say that I wish I wasn't such a shit like kid at school when I was learning these things, because I didn't. It all went out the other ear. I was bored because I felt like I was in a classroom.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
wasn't. I would be so fascinated by like learning all of the bones and the names and I'm like kind of pressing myself to do it in my own studio, and like sometimes you just don't have that time to do all that studying, and it's like just
Yeah.
hone in on like, okay, like this is the rib cage and like this is how it looks, and you know this bone is like in this position, and that muscle kind of tucks under this and that, and it's like you don't even. I wish I could like go to those same classes and actually retain the knowledge, actually
Right.
like want to learn.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel that for sure. Like I was definitely a shithead when I was like
Yeah,
19 years old, and my
yeah,
first like couple of art classes, like
yeah,
I don't know what this is all about, and that's why I
yeah.
ended up switching to biology because I wasn't sure, I wasn't really married to it. I love to
Sure.
draw, but I wasn't I didn't have a lot of drive or motivation. School felt like school, so I wanted to
That's
do
what I'm saying.
bands. That's all I really wanted to do was like play in bands. My
Yeah,
parents were like,
like
well, you got to go to college though, if you're gonna live under our roof.
true.
So, I did it. I wasn't really super present for my undergrad as much as I liked biology. I was more interested in playing music,
Yeah.
and I didn't go back to art school until I was 30. And so
Oh
when that
shit. So then
happened,
you really like.
so then I was like motivated though. At that point in my life, I'm like, well, I know what I like. I know that I love the science stuff.
Yeah.
I know kind of what I want to do with it.
Damn.
And so yeah, I got a lot more out of it than if I had gone to art school when I was 19 because I was a dumbass then. I
You
will
know, I
go
feel
ahead and
like
say.
maybe there's something to be said for that. Like, maybe kids shouldn't just fucking rush to a goddamn university and
Yeah,
like
exactly.
be forced to pay like boatloads of money that they'll owe for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
And like let people like think about it before they like and really know what they want to study and really
yeah,
give a fuck when they get there
yeah.
to
Because you don't
study
know what
what
you
they're
want.
doing like
I
in
was
their
I
30s.
was told that to everybody who will listen. I'm like, you don't know what you want. Like even the students that I have that would teach at Notre Dame, they're like super motivated. It's like a high level of like valedictorians at Notre Dame. Like they're all really smart, but they're all like, they're like 20. They don't fucking know what they want. So
Crazy.
they think they're gonna be whatever they're gonna be when they're 20, and then they get out of school, and then they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
first of all, the real world doesn't resemble college at all, and then the other part of it is like they aren't really sure anymore if that's what they actually wanted to do, and they
Right.
just spent,
It's just a
huge amount of money.
whirlwind that you're just fed like the lines like, follow this trail to get to the next step of humanity and it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like I my mom works at Cornell and I feel like it's kind of the same vibe there. Like they're very intellectual people, but they're young and they probably are gonna second
And
guess themselves when they get
yeah.
out of school or
You need a
whatever.
little time. You definitely
Yeah.
need time. And I know I was like super immature when I was that
Right.
age. Someone asked a question in here about if it's worth their time to take an online class or should they go to like a live class setting. I would just say if you can find like an online art thing and you can sample it for free, I would say that there's no harm in trying it out and seeing if that works for you. I
Mm.
wouldn't put down money like right off the bat on anything, um, because you never really know. I would just say like if you're looking to get some casual instruction, like the cheapest option is probably the best, just to start out with, and then as you start picking things up, you can start deciding if you want to invest
Right.
money and stuff
Right.
like that. But I would say like as far as online goes, look for like free samples of classes and see if you like that. And usually, if you live like near like an art museum of any kind, they usually will offer like cheaper classes that you could take as an adult. Like, they have a lot of adult classes. I've taught those. I've
Yeah.
taught at a museum in South Bend before. And they're like $15 a class or something. You go in for one session
And you can just
and
pay $15 and just
yeah, you just
learn stuff.
and they might have like a still life set up and you'll just do some observational drawing stuff and the person will teach you, some basic technique shit. And honestly,
That's
that
cool.
stuff I try to teach it like it helps. Like it helps me. Like the stuff that I've taught, I use. Like I don't teach students anything that I don't specifically find useful. You know what I mean? Like if there's something on a syllabus that's like, yeah, I've never used that before, and I don't know. I know that people do it, but I don't use it. I don't usually teach it. Like I usually teach the stuff that I specifically use a lot because
Sure.
I know I can point to what it's useful for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you get a good instructor for one of those classes, it's worth your time if you just want some casual instruction.
Right on.
But there are all kinds of like uh, resources for learning drawing basics. There's
Sure.
tons of resources.
At this point, I'm just going to do the image bank and really get inspired by, just micrology. Like you were saying, definitely sounds right up my alley. And I want to get more microscopic with the way that things ebb and flow in an imagery sense with that. So
The other thing too, like I just totally didn't. I don't even know why I like blanked on this. Like we're totally on the internet right now. It's like if if humans know how to do it,
yeah.
there's a YouTube tutorial on how to do it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if you go on YouTube and search like drawing, your problem is not going to be not finding enough. Your problem is going to be finding way too many tutorials and trying to figure out which ones you want to actually
For
watch.
sure.
So I would say too, like don't even spend money. Go on YouTube. Like I tell
Yeah.
I literally tell my
There you go.
students that. They'll
Yeah.
be like, I want to do this for a project. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that. Go on YouTube. It'll tell you
Yeah.
how to do it. Like the number one skill that you can have as an artist is the
Yeah.
skill of acquiring more skills. Like that's like the best thing you can learn how to do
Mhm.
is learn how to teach yourself stuff. And YouTube is a great way to like teach your stuff. If you don't know how to do it, like I love to watch like the guys who do like vacuum forming, like make movie props. I love watching the guys who make movie props. Like I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I'd love to do it. I don't have the setup or any of the tools, but I
Yeah.
feel like I understand the basics. Like if I had like a workshop, access to a workshop,
Are
I'd
you
love to
talking
do
about
something like that. But I'll watch
like
videos on shit that I have no idea what it is, and I just want to learn how to do it.
are you talking about props like to be used in movies that aren't like masks and faces or like
No, I'm talking about like the guys who
backgrounds
like
or
build like weapons and stuff.
building weapons?
They
Okay.
build like movie weapons, like fake guns that don't actually exist. I love watching stuff like that.
Nice. That's
It
cool, man.
doesn't like it's like not it doesn't have anything to do with my art, but it's like another skill set. I one of those things I'd love to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
But you can watch anyone do all kinds of stuff. I do follow a bunch of different painters and drawing guys on YouTube who do tutorial stuff too, and
Nice.
I'll just watch those just to kind of get ideas. Um,
I think a little bit ago I watched the Skinner show. You seen the Art of Skinner?
yeah,
He's just like
yeah,
doing these like tips on how to just like draw stuff, and he brings in like different like heavy music artists, and like
yeah,
they draw
yeah.
shit. They do like an interview, and it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like there's yeah, I'm sure there's YouTube video for things that you want to learn as far as drawing, and I'm gonna probably check that out too. I haven't even really thought to look up, you know, learning how to draw like the body in certain positions or learning how to draw a skeleton or whatever.
Right.
Um,
I watch one guy fairly regularly who does like how to paint the figure, like how to paint human beings in the like old masters like Caravaggio style. Like he has
oh, word.
whole like technique from start to finish where he shows how to like recreate that style, and that's awesome to me. That's something that like the basics of that technique are not something that I could use because I start my paintings a little differently. I use a little different materials in my oil paintings, but some of the stuff I totally can borrow from. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
can do that. The glazing stuff he does, I can totally borrow that.
nice.
It's like so it's going in and looking at artists. Like if you watch someone who exclusively does ink drawing and shows like tutorials on how to use the different tools and stuff, you may
Mm-hmm.
not be able to learn everything that you need from that one person, but you can find little things you're like, oh, I can totally use that. I could totally use that little technique, or I could totally use that tool. That little tool would be awesome. I'll get one of those. And that's
So,
another thing that is like kind of a big deal that I didn't really understand when I was starting out, and particularly when I was younger, was how important like tools actually are. Like you
sure.
kind of think you're responsible for making the drawing from start to finish. It's like, no, let the tool do the work with some of this stuff. Like there's some effects that you can't get, with
Yeah,
just
with
using the
one
same
kind of
pens from
tool,
start
you
to
need
finish. You know what I
specific.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I started during the pandemic because I was spending so much money on like brush nib pens. And I got sick of having to buy brush nib pens. So during the pandemic, I switched to using just like an actual brush and ink, to do like
Well, yeah.
a lot of the heavier work. And that like made a huge like I love it now. Like I wouldn't go back. Like I love the control that I get from the brush. I had no idea you could do it that way until I tried.
Yeah.
I was basically forced to. And then I
Yeah.
started looking up how people use the brush, and it like, oh well, this is amazing. This is like way better than what I was doing before. I'm gonna
Right.
totally use
You
it
can
this
get
way
it.
from
You
now
can
on.
get in tighter areas, I think, but
Yeah.
I haven't honestly. Like, I just started messing with black background around my pieces and using
Yeah.
white to accentuate certain things.
Yeah.
It just never really occurred to me because I've always used a digital. I digitize everything that I ink. You do too, I'm sure, but like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to talk to you about that too, but we'll segue into that after. So I digitize everything with the scanner, and when I bring it into Photoshop, I've learned this one little thing from one class that actually a classmate showed me how to do, and I've used it. It's made pretty much my entire income of any art I've ever made has been based off of this one tip, this one little snippet of
Right.
understanding how to isolate a line in Photoshop
Mm. Right.
because
Right.
it's like essential for any of the art that I do, and pretty much anyone who does art for stuff that can be printed or whatever. And
Right.
so I'm like, when I pull a line, I can do a lot of things digitally and just paint it, fill in
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that you just don't think about that, like having the actual raw pen on paper will do versus like what you're
Yeah.
doctoring with digital pen,
Right.
which
Right.
like I don't have fancy brushes in that.
No.
I it's overwhelming. It's like another one of those overwhelming things where like there's all these different like pen brushes you can have and all that. It's just really a lot. But I know that if I like took the time, I would find ones I liked and like put them in a library and all that. I just don't. I don't even bother. I'm just like,
Yeah, I mean, who has the time? I mean, not you got limited time. You have limited time on this planet. You have limited time in the day, and yeah, I the same thing. Like I try to do as much of my work analog
yeah,
as possible before
yeah,
it gets to the digitization point. Like what I have on the paper, basically, my last stages when I scan it in are basically cleanup,
right.
right? So like, one of the things I picked up on when I was in art school was I took a silk screening class. I took a
Mm-hmm.
screen printing class,
Same, yeah.
and so for one of the projects, I decided I would screen print one of my own drawings, and I learned the process of like making it print ready, which has helped me immensely in doing t-shirt designs for bands because I always send them like a totally print ready file because I know what a screen printer actually needs in order for
Same.
it to be
Mm-hmm.
ready. And so like the biggest trick for me is just getting the contrast up and then running a threshold adjustment on it. That's like the number one thing. That's basically all I do. I scan
Yeah.
it in, I make sure that
Move the
there's enough.
levels.
I make sure there's enough headroom around it. I do my levels and then I run threshold and I'm like it's done. Goes out if there's not as long as there's not like a bunch of like noise from if I have like if I did the background with a brush and there's some parts that it got a little too light compared to the rest, I usually will clean up the noise and that's about it. I don't usually do too much more. The biggest thing I have to do work wise digitally
Yeah.
is if bands want me to place their logo and they don't have their logo in vector and they have like just a really low res logo, I'm like, is that the best file you have? And they're like, yeah, this is what the guy gave us. I'm like, yeah, you're
I
not supposed to. You're
cringe.
supposed.
I think like I feel like yeah, I feel like there are so many, and it's crazy to me that like at this point, like this is still a thing. But I guess it's just because not everyone understands like how to keep things crisp, how to make sure that your resolution isn't too low when you're like using certain things. But yeah, it is. I have like OCD about certain things, and like I cringe when I see logos too blurry. I
Yeah.
hate it when people stretch things out, like
Mm,
especially in
no.
my work. It's
Yeah. No, I will. Basically the last couple of years I have vectorized so many bands logos for them because they didn't have a vector version of it.
I've been
Just
doing
so
the
that,
same.
and I would give it to them and say like, now when you get art from anyone else, or if you're gonna get a banner made or something, use this file.
Exactly.
Do not use the shitty PNG that you
Yeah.
sent me. Don't use that.
Yeah. Throw
Use
that
the
in the
vector
garbage.
file because that can be
Throw that in your
scaled.
digital garbage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put it
No,
in your
that's
digital garbage.
that's.
Just keep this .ai and .eps file. Don't bother with the shitty PNG.
I usually
Like,
I,
oh,
I
okay.
usually
Like,
go PNG, but I do like a higher res version of it. So
yeah, yeah.
like I have a program called Inkscape that I use, which is
Mhm.
not, it's like kind of the equivalent. It's a trace bitmap.
Okay,
So
cool.
but it doesn't keep it a vector. It's not a vector. It gets exported as a PDF, and then you can
Okay.
put that in Photoshop and make
Yeah,
it
there you go.
PNG.
Same thing. Yeah.
So I've been sending people, and it's the same thing. Like I'll make a logo for someone, and then I'll obviously send them that way. But then I have people that I'm working with, I'm making art for, and they send me the logo for the T-shirt or whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna clean this for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna clean this up. It looks bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know exactly.
I'm just like, how
Exactly.
are you okay with that? Like,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
would
No, that's the same
sign
thing. Like,
off on something like, yeah, this looks great, whatever. Like, what? all that
No,
time you
I'll
put
open
in the
stuff up and you
energy
can.
into the music, and you don't want it to be represented as best as it can with the logo that you know what I mean? That like,
Yeah, no, I've definitely opened up files and I'm like, wow, this was done with the ballpoint pen,
right?
like on a piece of regular, and you could just see it. And it's like, well, this needs to
Yes.
be cleaned up. This needs to be cleaned, clean up, because I won't put this on my artwork.
So you know the Lord of Logos, Christoph Spajdel?
Mm,
He would have me, and I think he's done this with several people. He would sometimes if you were in a band and you needed logos done, if you wanted a logo done by him, he would
yep,
trade you. And he did this for my old band Sagittacia. We wanted a logo by him,
yeah.
and so his trade-off was, I just need you to help me digitize some of my logos I've made for other bands. So he would send me his scans of paper inkings, and I would create the logos like digitized versions and send them back, and then that was my payment to him.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
That's a
Like,
great way to outsource some of your labor there. Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
funny.
think he
That's
still
great.
does it. He just doesn't like computers. He's just like,
Yeah.
I make the art on paper. You help me with the digital. I'm like, all right,
No, that's good though. Like
I'm not
I
doing it
honestly
now,
like
but
I get asked every once in a while if I do graphic design stuff, and I'm like, no, because
yeah,
I don't want to spend more time on the computer than I'm spending at the drawing desk. I want to be on the drawing desk or
I
at the
hear
easel.
that.
I
I
don't want to
feel like
be.
I'm kind of back and forth. Like I spend a good amount of time in the digital sense, but and I also feel like a lot of people now are getting graphics tablets,
Yeah.
like they're getting like iPad Pros, and they're
Right.
and they're
Right.
getting an Apple Pencil and using Procreate.
Yeah.
Gruesome Graphics is on here right now. He uses that, but he jumps back and forth.
Yeah.
He'll do like ink on paper, and he'll do, ballpoint pen on paper. Like I talked to him about this before because I was interested like about his process too, and we're
Right.
actually going to be doing Form Terror Friday with him soon. So
Nice.
um,
Awesome.
so that'll be sick. But he also has a graphics, like he has like an iPad,
Right.
and I
Right.
was thinking, like, if I had the money to shell out for something like that, I feel like it would vastly improve my production, like the
Yeah.
amount of work that I make. Because
Yeah. I have a small, like a really cheap tablet that I got a few years ago,
yeah,
just for if a client wants me to do like a colorized T-shirt design.
yeah,
So they want 2 to 3 colors. Easier for me to do that digitally, right? Like, 'cause then you do the color separations are in the file, and then there's
yeah,
not much bullshit for the printer to deal with.
right,
So I started doing them that way with the tablet, like hooked up to Photoshop,
yeah.
and that like was obviously way better than trying to do it with a mouse. So
Oh,
I
absolutely.
do some like digital work like that where
I have one of these
I'm
guys,
using a tablet to kind of help me out. Yeah, exactly.
a
Uh,
bamboo. It's
but
bamboo, yeah. But
but
yeah,
but it work like whatever works to kind of help kind of push your production line forward. So
yeah,
definitely, like, I'm not like opposed to doing digital stuff at all. Like, I know how to do it all. Like,
hmm
I made sure, like, make it a point to like understand how to do a lot of stuff between Photoshop and Illustrator.
sure,
It's just that I don't love to do a whole lot of it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's my thing. Like, if I'm on the tablet because I'm coloring a drawing, I'm totally fine with that. But if I'm like placing text on the back of your vinyl sleeve for the 19th time because you don't like the pica size of the font still, like, I don't want to deal with that stuff. Like, that is not my favorite. I don't find that fulfilling. Some people do find it fulfilling. Some
I
people
do
love
I
that.
do layout
And
work, and I feel like if I just use my understanding of what I think I would want to see
yeah,
on something physical, 9 times out of 10 the guys on the other end are happy.
yeah,
So, but I do hear what you're saying. Like, you don't want to spend more time than you have to
yeah.
in the digital sense, and I understand that, and I can totally respect that.
Well, it's one of the things. One of the reasons why I love like doing stuff for Maggot Stomp, because Scott is a graphic designer, and like, I know whatever my art's gonna be on is gonna be beautifully like
That's
designed and
sick.
with the
Yeah,
graphic design
hell
stuff
yeah,
because he knows what he's doing. So I always
nice.
love knowing I'm in good hands with that stuff.
That's great.
Um, I
Yeah.
don't consider
So
myself a graphic designer, so I'm always like, does this look good? I'm always second guessing myself when it comes to that shit.
I
So
hear you. Yeah. I just like to keep things centered.
Yeah, yeah. Keep it,
It kind of
keep it
bugs me
centered.
when things aren't centered on people's artwork. Like, I mean, obviously, nothing like that's like illustrated on the left side of the piece of or media is supposed to be centered. But I'm saying like something that's supposed to be centered, it's not
Yeah.
centered. I'm like,
No.
yeah,
Yeah. Or if it, the other thing is like, even if it is like, one of the things I've learned is like, even if it is centered in according to Photoshop or Illustrator,
yep,
but the logo or whatever it is slightly asymmetrical, it
yep.
doesn't look centered, then I've got to fuck with it till,
Me
yeah,
too.
nudge, nudge, nudge until it
Yep.
looks the right
I
way. Because
can't.
it
I
doesn't
can't
matter
be
what the
okay
computer
with what
program says.
computer says is straight. I know.
Yeah.
My
I
eyes
don't
don't
believe it.
lie.
My eye doesn't believe it. So I've got to fix it, Yeah, no,
Yeah,
totally, totally.
totally.
Um,
Yeah. Well, dude, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, getting like inside your head and kind of seeing like what your process is, what inspires you. Um, it's about 7 o'clock. I don't know how you feel about how long you wanted to go. I can go for a little bit longer if you want to talk. We can like. I wanted to just say real quick. Have you ever heard of In the Maze of Kadath from this band Catacomb?
I have, yeah, I know Catacomb. I do.
Right.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
Hell yeah. Because like I found them on YouTube in like some weird death metal wormhole, and I really appreciated them. And I felt like today was an appropriate day to wear the shirt.
Yeah,
um,
no, that's great. No, that's great. I remember coming across one of their CDs
yeah,
years ago. There used to be this great used record store in Detroit where I'm from, and
yeah,
I would just like, I love like just flipping through old CDs and seeing what's there. And I found this one that, yeah, had like this great like Cthulhu painting on the cover, just like, drippy logo and everything. And I looked at the back and like all the songs have to do with Lovecraft.
sick.
So I probably the first like funeral doom record I ever heard too was like that, where it's like, whoa, this sounds like I'm in a giant cave under the ocean. Like this is
Hell
fucking.
yeah,
So yeah, no, definitely down with them. Definitely down with them for sure.
nice. Hell
Yeah, they
yeah.
used to
Yep.
go on a lot of painting playlists when I was in grad school, like to make me in the zone for painting like weird shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
What's up, Lucas Ruggieri? How the fuck are you, man?
oh,
For
nice.
joining us. Another killer artist that I'll be
Yeah, definitely.
Warm
Another
Terror
like huge
Fridays with.
influence on me actually. Back in the day when I first started doing this, I was definitely looking at Lucas's work quite a
Yeah,
bit.
super inspiring, super detailed, fucking tight. We're
Mm.
gonna be talking. That's
It's
gonna be
that
good.
hatch work, man. That hatch work is
Crazy,
intense.
crazy. So much action is happening in each piece too. There's so much story just by looking at one piece.
Yeah, one of the kinds of drawings and paintings that I love the most are the ones where like you're rewarded for continuing to look at it. And Lucas's work is another one where like the longer you look at one of his drawings,
Yeah,
right, the more stuff you start to find in it. You're like, holy shit, there's like way more in this than what you see in
definitely.
your first few seconds of looking at it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been
definitely a
seeing
huge
a lot of
influence.
mind-blowing work out there. Just finding new artists every day that I'm just like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
what?
how do you create these things? How long did it take you? Oh, a couple days. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
days. I don't know about you, but another thing, like I haven't gotten too many questions about this, but sometimes it comes up about like, what do you do when your fucking shoulder starts to feel like, like seized up from spending too much time drawing? And there's definitely like I do some stretches and things like that to kind of keep my
Word stretches
my
are
shoulders
important
loose.
as older dudes. I can definitely vouch for stretching for
Yeah,
anything. Doesn't matter
yeah,
what you're gonna do. If you
yeah,
stretch beforehand, you're gonna feel less like a piece of shit, and less like you forgot how to be a human being.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
And I
yeah,
definitely get like drawing claw, or I've been like this for too long, and I'm like, oh my god,
drawing claw
my thumb is so stiff. Um,
thing.
so
I haven't been doing heavy stippling lately, so it hasn't really been too much of an issue. I find that. Oh, I want to ask you: Do you ever make work with absolute silence? Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like there's something like that just happens where you're just like drawn to making a piece and you're not even focused on like what music you want to listen to or anything. You're already like in it and you just
yeah,
stay in that zone.
yeah,
And then you realize 3 hours have passed by or 2 hours have passed by and you're like, I haven't been listening to anything. It's just been
yeah.
silence.
Just been silent. Yeah. No, you get in the zone.
Yeah.
That's my favorite way to work. If I'm working in the morning,
Yeah.
if I'm working early in the morning, I like to work in silence.
Okay.
At about 2 p.m., and then I have to have music or a podcast. You know
Word.
what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the thing for me is I used to love to draw when before the pandemic kind of closed everything up. I used to have a second studio in my office where I taught at Notre Dame, so that I would go in before my classes and get a little work done before I started to teach for the day. And
Yeah.
I'd love to just sit there in silence before the teaching day was going to start and just draw in total silence for like 45 minutes to an hour or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but being at home, I put on a lot more music now than I did before, just because I'm usually like really bad about getting up at like a normal time, and so I usually wouldn't get in the studio until like 2 p.m. And by then I'm
Of
like,
course.
this is my like I want to hear something, to
Yeah.
get
Yeah. Yeah.
pumped so I can
Definitely
go
in
for a
that
couple of
mode.
hours.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, but definitely I do enjoy drawing in silence sometimes. It really
Yeah,
does. It
it's
really is
almost like
meditative
you're
and
more
calming.
concentrated. There's less going on, and it's like therapeutic.
Yeah,
It's almost like meditative. Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely a nice thing every once in a while. But like it's funny because you're making art for like the most pummeling fucking evil shit, and you're just in silence, just
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
So
Sometimes like I don't know, this is another weird thing, but sometimes when I'm drawing stuff, like I will make like the sounds of the thing I'm drawing like with my mouth. Like I'll draw something all squelchy and I'll do it, you know, just to
yes,
psych myself out. Like I
that's
can't help it.
amazing.
It's like
That's
totally a
amazing.
reflex where it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I love this. It's all, or whatever it might be. I can't help but like add a soundtrack to
Yeah,
something when
yeah,
I'm drawing it
that's
because I like
amazing.
hear it. I think the other thing about it is I don't sometimes see my images as static in my head. Like I
Hmm.
imagine what they would be like if they were moving,
Sure,
and so
sure.
I see that, and then I want to add sound to it with my mouth or something like that. It's
That's
how like our brains all kind of conceive of what we're doing differently. I think while we're doing it, and so a thing for me is I generally don't conceive of an image as like a static image. I always am thinking about it as being in the middle of something happening. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
part of some action is kind of going on.
right.
Even
I've
if
been
it's
doing
like
a lot of sorry, not to cut you off.
no,
I
go
just
ahead.
I'm thinking about when you were saying you make sounds when you're making things. I
Yeah,
have a little thing that I do that's not sounds. It's I've noticed lately, like, because I've been doing a lot of like scribbly hatching,
yeah,
like filling in, like shading with like scribbly kind of like really free flowing stuff. I feel like my other hand, while it's like above the page, I'm like moving my hand, like I'm moving my fingers while I'm like doing this. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah. You got to get into it. You know what I mean? It's like all
yeah,
that like unconscious stuff that helps you like
yeah,
get into it. No,
right,
I'm totally there with you. I feel that like for sure. Being a drummer, you're a drummer too, right?
I am
Yeah. So being a drummer, that's the other thing is like my foot's always going like the whole time I'm drawing
right on.
too. Even if
Yeah,
I'm not listening to music, if I'm
yeah,
listening, if I'm in silence, my like foot is like kind of
yeah,
going.
yeah.
Like whatever the beat of the drawing is going to be. Whatever the rhythm of the drawing is going to be. So like I'm hardly ever like totally still. I'm also a big fidgeter though. Like I fidget constantly when I'm not doing something. So like even while I'm drawing, I'll be like
Sure.
fidgeting. It's
You
too
know,
much energy.
I'm a goofball, so like I'll just like randomly make up shit when I'm tired to stay awake. I'll be like, and the carrots are always telling me to do my laundry, but I ain't gonna listen. Like I'm just like it's just random shit that just keeps me like awake enough to be like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Like, what do you do?
Yeah,
And just
yeah. No,
laughing to myself, like, yeah.
I'm big on in making up songs too while I'm drawing.
Oh,
If I
totally.
am doing in silence, I will either make up a song that is complete bullshit,
Yep.
or I will change the lyrics to something that's in my head to be particularly awful. I will change the
To a
lyrics to be
song
about
that already
dicks.
exists, change the lyrics. Yeah, I do
I
that a
change the
lot
lyrics to be
too.
about dicks almost all the time. So
Hell yeah, just dicks and butts and poop.
yep,
But yeah, man, like I feel like everyone's got their own things that they do, and it would be interesting to like keep that as maybe a segment where
yeah,
I
for
like take
sure.
a second to ask like, what's the weirdest shit that you do when you're drawing? You know.
You have my answer. It's make sound effects with my mouth whenever I'm drawing like something gushy or something like that. I just love to think about the action
That's
happening. So
hilarious.
it's a
Yeah,
it's a reflex. I can't even control it. I'm like, ugh.
that's amazing. I love it.
So
Seagrave or Patagno? I don't know who Patagno is.
oh, Joe Patagno.
Oh,
Um,
Patagno?
he's most well known for the cover to Motorhead's Overkill, but
Oh, word.
he's done like a couple of like the more recent Autopsy covers.
Oh,
Like he's still
really?
kicking around, like doing awesome shit. Like he's one of those guys who uses an airbrush a lot, and that's a like
Oh,
one of those things that to me is mind blowing. Is the airbrush? Like
he's a
I would
lot of
love to get
Motorhead.
one
Okay.
day to
Yeah,
like really ramp up my painting game, but I'm not there yet. But yeah, he's like one of those guys, kind of an airbrush wizard.
that's crazy. Yeah, I'm
I
seeing
would have to say I'm
this
split. Like I love
Orgasmatron.
because I
What's
think
that?
they're apples and oranges. I would have to say I'm split. I think they're apples and oranges. I think their styles are so different and the techniques they use are so different that I kind of love aspects of both Seagrave. Like Seagrave does the gouache. Gouache is so fucking unforgiving. Like
Dude,
I can't even. I
yeah,
use a
I've
little bit of
tried
white
Quad.
gouache. I
Yeah.
use white gouache in my drawings because that's the best white that I've found
Do
to go
you
over
really?
ink.
So you
Yeah,
don't use like a white pen?
I have like jelly rolls and I use them a little bit, but if I really want control, I use white gouache,
Wow. And you
which is
use
most of what it is.
a brush?
I use a brush, yeah, white gouache with a brush. But
Shit.
to actually do a painting in gouache, fuck that. Like fuck that, never ever happening.
Right
And the fact that he does his paintings in gouache blows my fucking mind. Like
on.
it makes me insane when I think that those paintings are being done in
I
gouache.
thought they were acrylic.
You know, his old stuff might have been, but his new stuff, like the last like 15 years, it's like gouache. They're
Yeah,
all like this big, and they're like fucking gouache, and it's like,
right.
what? How? I mean, I guess the short answer is I probably have used cheap gouache, and that's probably why I hate it. Like if you're using like the Cadillac of gouache, then it's probably a lot it's probably a lot more enjoyable and rewarding to use it. I know that I used cheap gouache when I was in school, and I fucking hated it because
Yeah,
it's not a forgiving medium. It's like even less forgiving than watercolor, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
Watercolor is not forgiving either.
Now we're
So
talking tools. I want to ask you, what's your
yeah.
favorite pen? Because I've got Stadler. I've got these weird Faber-Castell ones. I've got the Pigma Microns. I'm
Mhm.
trying everything. I like the
Yeah.
Stadlers. I think they last longer, but I've been trying these random. The fucking the thing is gone. I can't even read what it says anymore. It says black liner. It's been
Okay.
working
I
pretty
think
well
it's a
for
Copic.
me.
Those are Copic, right? Copic black liners.
I don't think they're Copic. It's like a
Okay.
different brand.
Hmm.
But Copic are nice. I have some Copic too.
Yeah.
Some multi liners. Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
doing some stuff like
I
that. But
pretty much exclusively use the Pigmas, the
really,
Microns. Yeah, pretty much exclusively. Although I have a few. There's always a thing like you have like your toolkit as an artist, and you have like that one tool that you just use to do that one thing.
sure.
And so I do like to have like a Faber-Castell Pitt brush nib pen,
Yep.
just
Yeah.
for like just a couple of things I'll do in a drawing. But mostly I stick to the microns. I love that they introduced the 003, like the super small pen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I use that a bit more. I don't use it too much when I'm doing t-shirts because I'm always worried whether or not the screen printer's going to
Exactly.
be able to get
Yeah.
that detail.
That's
But if
what I've
someone's
been
like album
looking
cover,
for too.
I
I
use
keep
it for
looking
the
at it
album cover.
like,
Yeah, no, I definitely will use it for album covers though. Anything that's going to be like digitally or like
nice.
offset printed,
Hell
I
yeah.
love to use like the smallest level of detail I can possibly get in
It
there.
looks sick when you bunch it all together. It really does. It pronounces that part of the piece for sure.
It allows you to control the value too. I love those like
Yes.
those very thin line pens allow you to like do shading over work that you've drawn without obliterating what you've drawn.
Sure.
So you can push things back, and like that's for me getting that sense of space in a drawing comes from being able to go over something with a very, very fine pen in order to push it back so that it feels like things are like rounding away from you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like a big thing I try to go for in my drawings is like
Yeah.
the sense that you could stick your finger in it, you know? Like
Exactly.
I love to have like stringy stuff and nets and stuff in my drawing, and I want that feeling you can stick your finger in it.
Yep.
And those like really, really fine line pens.
I
Like I
want
just
that
feel like
on
I
a
get a lot of good
t-shirt.
control.
Lucas Court art. I want to be able to stick a finger in it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's my thing. Do you want to stick your finger in it, or does it trigger your trypophobia? That was my other thing. It's like I love to have. I've actually had a few people tell me, like, okay, that's a great drawing, but it triggers my trypophobia. I'm like, mission accomplished.
Dick.
Mission accomplished. Like, someone can't look at it because the holes in it are too gross.
That's
That's
sick.
awesome.
That rules. That's the finest compliment you can receive.
That to me is the finest compliment. But yeah, I think the microns are the ones that I have. I've used the Copic ones, and I've used some Statler's. I actually love Statler's pencils, but I don't use the pens as much. But I find that the microns do the job for me, and I'm really comfortable with the way they lay down a line.
Okay.
It's one of those things where I like know what to expect whenever I go in to draw with it. So I've just gotten comfortable with them. I don't know if the preference is because they're better. The preference is probably just familiarity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think like they were the first ones I came into like seeing being used. Like the artists that I was looking up to at the time were all using them, and I was just like, all right, well, that's what they are, and I'm just gonna get those and do like line work for that. But as I went through like different art stores, I was like, I'm gonna try other things because maybe these ones last longer. They're more expensive. Why are they more expensive?
Yeah.
I find that Copic lasts longer. They are more
Okay.
expensive and they last longer. I have a graveyard bin of all of my Pigma microns because I'm too afraid to throw them out in case
I won't throw them out either.
run out of like a certain nib that I need.
Yeah.
And like, but it's kind of like silly. Is I should give up that ghost because like it's probably dried the fuck up by now.
I know. I do the same thing though because like I have these gallon Ziploc bags that are just full of old micron pens.
Yeah,
like I don't want to throw them away. They're like nicely made pens, so I don't know what to do with them.
It's like the
so
most microscopic hoarding you can be.
Well, I've gotten to a point where I have like a phase system for my pens. Like I have these are the brand new ones.
Yep.
Right. These are the ones that have been they're maybe 3 months old. They still work, but their nibs are a little shot. And then these are the ones where like the inks basically run out. You know what I mean? So the ones that the inks run out, I put them in the 3-gallon bag or the gallon bag. The ones that are like a few months old, I keep those like off to the side. And if I feel like I want to pull from something I don't have the right size of, I'll pull from that pool.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, they get shifted. It's just this whole ad hoc system is developed for what I do with my pens as I'm drawing with.
I don't have that system. My desk is just like covered in pens, and I'm like. I'm just like, does this one work? I'm
a big pile maker. I'm not saying it looks organized. I'm just saying like there'll be a pile over here that in my head is the 3-month-old pile.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll have like a thing that has all the new pens in it. I keep a little
tape to label.
I keep a little organizer that has all the new stuff in it. That's what I do.
I
know what the
new ones full of shit that I feel like I have cups on my desk that are basically just looking at me all day, and I don't use at all half the time. But then I have ones that are, you know, holding pens that I use every 3 months. So,
right.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, it really is like, I find it interesting because like a lot of artists like get asked questions about what tools they use and like might think like from asking those questions like if I buy this I'm gonna be like better or whatever, and that's never the case. We're talking about tools because we are doing this as like it's our trade, and like just to like let everyone know like we're talking shop about these tools because we use them every day or we use them in our work, and we're like experimenting, and it's good to ask other artists like what you're using like that, but never think that buying a certain kind of tool is gonna like make you a better artist. It might make your art different. It might make it more interesting in certain ways. It might spark some new creativity, obviously. Yeah. But like it's really just all about what you're putting into it. than
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
actual.
a new tool, like a new tool can maybe change the way you draw, and a new tool can open up a lot of new possibilities.
Yeah,
But
be excited.
it's not a shortcut to making better drawings.
Exactly. Right.
You have to like be willing to experiment with
Mhm.
different tools in order to settle on what's like the what you kind of prefer to use. Like I forget his name, but the guy who does Putrid Gore, right? Like
Yeah.
that dude uses like 20 different things just to make a drawing, right? Like he's like splattering on it. He's got like he's got different kinds of pens and different kind of brushes that he uses. Like he did a post where he kind of shows his tool set, and I'm like, shit. Like mine's just like micron pens and a brush, and that's pretty much it. That's like all I use for mine. But like some artists, they have a wide tool set. Some artists have a narrow tool set. It
Yeah.
really just depends on your preference and what you're trying to do. Like tools also, like for what I'm trying to do most of the time, micron pens and a brush with some ink is going to be enough. But if I
Yeah.
need to do something different with it, then yeah, you can bet I'm going to be starting to
Right.
incorporate different tools into it. Like if I have to do it as a colored ink drawing where I'm going to use watercolor, then I start introducing a bunch of different things in order to kind of make that happen. Because then I had to start bringing in mop brushes and
Hmm.
a whole set of watercolor tools to use. Um, that I
Do
wouldn't
you
normally
use
use.
watercolor tools to do ink work, or are you talking about
Just
watercolor?
to add the color, to add watercolor to it.
Hmm.
Because if I do a colored ink drawing, I'm going to do it in watercolor if it's not going to be colored digitally.
Yeah.
So I
Lucas just
use
said
like
Matt Carr. He's a fucking crazy artist.
yeah, yeah,
His color work
absolutely.
is out of this world, man.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. I noticed like he posted a piece that he did recently, um, and that's Putrid Gore art. That's you were trying to. He was saying that's Matt Carr.
Matt Carr, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He posted a piece a little bit ago that was like phenomenal, and he was like, "I gotta redo this," and that was inspiring because like sometimes you might get all the way through something and it might be fucking amazing to a lot of people, but if it's not scratching the itch, if you know that you can do it better, or
Yeah.
something's not going the way that you want.
No, that definitely has happened to me. In fact, the one I can think of right off the top of my head is when I was doing the insert illustrations for the last Black Dahlia Murder album.
Uh-oh.
One of the
Okay,
drawings
yeah.
I did in there, I submitted to them twice because I'm like, I don't like the one that I did for you. And Trevor was like, it looks cool, dude. I'm like, no, I can do it better. I didn't like it. I didn't think it looked, something about it I
Right.
just didn't like it. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want to have to look at that. Like, I don't want a bunch of people to see
Exactly.
it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
exactly.
I'm going to do it over. So I did it over and he's like, looks great. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, it's always nice when bands are like super receptive and like love whatever you give them, and they're just happy that you made it and they like your art. But that's not enough for me. Like I've done a lot of screenshots sent to them, and then I'm like, no, this is better, and I send them
Right.
more screenshots
Right.
because like
Right.
I want it to be as best as I can make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
not gonna just settle for like, okay, I made some ink on paper, scanned it in. Here's what color. Okay, here you go, done. Like I'm always gonna be like, does it look good this way, or does it look good with this, and does it need this? Like, do I want to put a frame on this? Do I want to like highlight this? Do I want to
Yeah.
make sure like this logo stands out, like this placement of this logo? Like I'm thinking more about layout and like the overall like look of what it's going to look like on a t-shirt, and like
Yeah.
I'm not okay with just sending my art to a band and be like, figure it out, thanks for paying me, I'm done, I'm gonna move
Right.
on. It
Right.
takes me time to like undo, like it's like I hate looking at rock climbers, but it feel like I'm rock climbing sometimes when I'm making art, because like I got like the cams and fucking crevices, and
Yeah.
I'm not just able to just like let go. You know what I mean? I have to
Yeah.
like undo the cams and like climb down, like, or be up top obviously. But I'm just saying
Right.
like it's hard for me to take my hooks out of a project like just right away. I
Right.
have to like, is that what I needed? Like I might email someone and be like, wait a minute, I made a tweak. Like I gotta send
Right.
that to you, and like
Right.
I'm always I always feel better like knowing that I took that extra little bit of time to really think like, is this something I want to see? Is this something I want
Yeah.
to reflect my artwork?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, it's like a
And
proofread of your art.
and
Like,
like to the same. I mean, on the other side of that too, you also have to be like, you also have to be, forgiving of yourself too, where you're like, not
sure.
every piece that you do is going to be your favorite piece
Of
either.
course, right. You
And,
can't
and
like obsess over it and be like, no, it's not good enough, and then hold up production for
yeah,
the band that you're working
exactly.
for. Obviously,
Especially if they like it, if the client likes it, and
that's
you're
the
like,
other thing.
I've done better stuff, but this is,
Got to move on.
it's there's like a kind of a point for me where like it's acceptable. You know what I mean? And there's like
Totally.
kind of a range there, and I
Yeah.
don't want to ever fall in the unacceptable to me.
Right. Of
But
course.
you know, the other thing too is that I've really found it to be a really useful tool when I am trying to get my mitts around a piece of artwork as it's developing is when I take pictures of what I'm doing to send to clients. Something about having the piece shrunk down to the
Yeah.
size of your phone screen makes you see things you wouldn't normally have seen.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then that always helps me like, oh, there's not enough black in this spot.
Yes.
Balance it off. And I
Yeah. No,
didn't
that's
see that until it was
huge.
shrunk,
That is
you know?
huge because like, and that's another reason why like I will take the time to make a JPEG high res, send it in. I've used Messenger is my like fucking saving grace anymore because I can actively like back and forth with people that I'm working
Right,
with,
right,
see how they feel about it, show them things, show them different colors of things, do what
right.
get their feedback, but also be looking at it on my phone.
Yeah,
I go to the store, I get some beer, I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I want to sign off on this? Like, oh no, I think it needs more work on this side. Yeah, like that's a really good point, and I
yeah,
never even thought to say that, but yeah, that's
yeah.
totally true.
Yeah, usually when I get towards the end, when I start sending like my final images to the client, I will kind of make a checklist on, looking at the piece of like things I want to fix before I finish it. Like,
Totally.
oh, there's not enough black value in this
Yeah.
spot, so the thing doesn't look 3D enough here, or this part needs a little more detail, or I want to get rid of this tentacle because I don't think it's working. I'll have
Yeah.
like a little checklist of stuff, but I don't see those things when my nose is like, 2 inches
Sure.
from the
Of course.
drawing on my drawing board.
Right.
I see it when it's shrunk down as a photo on my phone, and I see the whole thing a
Which
little differently. And I also
which is the
realize that,
way people are gonna see it. Like
it's the way
that,
people are going to see it. Yeah, yeah. If
sometimes
they
that's
don't
the
buy the
only
shirt,
way they'll see it in their whole life.
yeah,
Isn't
yeah,
that
in their
fucking
whole life,
like ah,
just scrolling on Instagram, just
cool?
hitting the little heart icon. That's how they'll see it. So yeah, you have to consider that. But it
Yeah.
also, I think it for whatever reason, it's a great editing device. It just helps you see. It's just like when a cinematographer does this to kind of get the shot. Taking a photo of your work
Right.
makes you see it in a different, like frames it in a way that you don't have it framed when it's sitting on your drawing desk. Makes you see it a little bit differently. So
Right. Someone asked
yeah,
a
I love that as a
question.
tool.
Um, Sorry, you cut out. Like you froze, so I didn't hear what you said at the end there.
Oh, I was just saying it's like a great like framing device. Makes you see the drawing differently than it looks like when it's on your desk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed. So a person asked, do you always get the music before entering creation? And I have something to say about that too after you answer.
Yeah, not always.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't. It depends on where the artist is at in where the band is at in the process of, like, sometimes they come to me, they're like pre-production, they haven't even gone in the studio yet, and they've already come to me with an idea because they want the artwork to start like rolling along as they're in the studio, and maybe they'll start sending me rough mixes like as I'm working on, like, so if it's like an album cover, that's what's
Yeah.
happened sometimes. Other times they've been done, and I've been literally the only reason the album's not out is because I'm making the artwork for it, and they're waiting on me.
Okay.
But what they'll often do in that case, like in the case that they haven't started yet or they're in the middle of recording, I'll just go back and listen to their old stuff.
Okay. So they have something to listen to.
Yeah, I like to give a listen because I feel like it puts me in the headspace
It is.
of what I'm trying to do with the drawing. Like if they're a really slimy sounding band, then I want to make a really slimy sounding piece of art.
Sure.
If they're like really pummeling death thrash or something,
Yeah.
then I want to make something that's gonna look like pummeling death
Spicy
thrash,
and
you know?
fucking heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sorry. I'm like, ugh, I gotta say this. Uh, it is a requirement for me to have music to listen to before I sign off on any art being made for any band that hits me up. Because too many times have I had a person hit me up for a logo, and I'll make a logo for them, and then their band doesn't even go anywhere, doesn't get off the ground. They don't
Right.
even have music.
Right.
I used to take on everything because I wanted to get to the next level and like
Yeah.
just make work happen and whatever. There's all the reasons you can say, but like, I wanted to ask you, like, do you require music for bands that want stuff? And so that's an interesting thing that you said there.
Yeah,
Because,
I go check them. I go check them out. Like, so if they're not on Bandcamp already, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
well,
most of the people who approach me, they're like they've already done stuff. You know what I
right.
mean? So I
Which
can go
I
see.
believe for you, like, I feel like you probably passed that for
Yeah,
that like that limbo point where like you've got people that aren't very like um, don't have a lot of
flaky.
experience
It's
with the
flaky
whole
sometimes.
process of being in a band and getting art done and like the rapport that you have to have with an artist to make things happen with that.
Yeah,
I think that you probably have the privilege as the artist that has worked hard to get to that level
yeah,
to not have to deal with that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't deal with it too much. I used
that's great.
to
Can't
when
wait
I
till I
was
get there.
like when I was way before this, like when I was actually in school for biology,
Yeah.
is when I kind of started trying to do illustration for bands, and I worked mostly with punk bands at that time. It was a lot of stuff in like the hardcore underground. In fact, one of my favorite pieces from that period, I did do a shirt for Municipal Waste, like just before Waste
Nice.
and All came out, because I knew Tony a little bit.
Hell yeah.
My old band played with them, so it was like that scene. But I got a lot of stuff from bands that they would commission me for like a demo cover, and then they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, dude, we broke up." So I would have done a piece of artwork, and they just flake out, like just lots of flaking out.
So
And so
fucked.
I cut my teeth on the flaking out, like bands flaking
Exactly.
out.
And I think as artists for bands, you kind of have to. You
Yeah. Oh yeah.
like making mistakes. You learn from those mistakes, and now it is a requirement. If anyone hits me up and they want a logo or they want artwork, I require. I don't care if it's a fucking phone recording from band practice.
Right.
I want to hear it. If I'm into it, I'll rep it. But if I first, and that's the other thing, I don't want to sign off on everything. I don't like deathcore. I don't like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
don't want to
Right.
up for your brutal death metal band. It's
Right.
not my thing. I don't like it. Like, some slammy shit is just not my style. I want to
Right.
represent fucking like specific things.
Yeah.
So I don't have the time. Like, I don't want to do anything for a stoner band. I don't want, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's not what I want to do anymore. So,
Right.
like, I had to be real with myself and say, like, I only have so much time in the day, and I want to be passionate about what I'm making art for.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brain doesn't have enough capacity to just be able to spit shit out and be like, here, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the thing,
Yeah.
like, I can't do that. I have to fully
The other
immerse.
side, the other side of that for me too is that like I don't just work with bands too.
Sure.
I love that there's a brewery in New Jersey that I've worked with for a while now.
What's the name of them?
Troon Brewery.
Oh, yeah,
So,
okay.
yeah, Alex over there is a really cool guy,
Nice.
and I've worked with him for a little while now. And
Sick.
there's like a pizza place in Indianapolis I did a piece for. They wanted some death metal looking artwork for their for
Nice.
some of the promo stuff. And I love working with, for me the biggest thing is the clients I've gotta get the impression I'm gonna get paid, and that the artwork's gonna get out there. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
those are the two big things. Are they organized enough to pay me and get the work out there? Because I really just want eyeballs to see it. That's like my biggest thing is like
Of course.
if it's a project that I think I can kind of believe in, and they're cool enough people to work with, and they're gonna pay me, then yeah, then I'm probably gonna say yeah, let's do it, let's make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But yeah, I think what's happened for me too, though, is that because I have a reputation for working with certain kinds of bands, a certain area of the underground, death metal scene, I mostly get approached by bands that are kind of within that already. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
which is
Like,
cool. I mean, I hope that that's what it is that you truly want to be doing.
yeah. But I
And
also, I would also like, yeah, if like a hardcore band approached me, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do something. Like,
word.
I listen to a lot of hardcore, let's do it. So it's not, I have a pretty eclectic taste for what I'm into when it comes to metal and underground extreme music in general.
Yeah. I mean,
If I
I,
get
I
a
mean, I
logo
like
for,
certain different kinds of music, but that doesn't mean I want to make art for it all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a piece for that kind of like uh gothic experimental rock band Dry Wedding. Like I did their logo. And like I've worked with them, actually working on shirt design for them too. I like what they do. I like the music, and they think that my aesthetic fits for them, and I think it does
Cool.
too. So it's like it's one of
Nice.
those things. Like I love putting new dimensions on what I'm doing by working with clients that are kind of outside of this sort of the death metal thing. But my meat and potatoes, like I just love
Yeah.
working. It's like
I did something similar recently. I have two Instagrams. I started this Form Terror growth page to really embrace the weird, gross shit that I want to make
yeah,
for the kinds of bands that I want to represent. Because I was getting all too often, I was getting approached by bands I just didn't want to really represent,
right,
and it was a little frustrating. I felt like I had like pigeonholed myself into something I didn't sign up for,
right,
and so making art that's like a little more witchy. I would do like a lot of craft like markets and stuff
yeah,
like that, and a lot of those markets for like dark artwork, you would see like pagan and witchy occult
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and so like I was involved in that, and so I grew a fan base involving that, and I wanted something pushing toward death metal, something that really like pulled from like the blood sport, the things that I want to do with death metal and the things that
right,
I want to like that I'm inspired by in that like gross aspect of art. And like every once in a while, I'll have a friend hit me up about a project that's not death metal, and
right.
like, yeah, I'll definitely like support my friend and do something cool. Like I did this thing called Gloom Lurker as a project of my friend, this dude from Vivisect in New Jersey,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and um, he had an excellent painting by a guy named like something Art Wizard. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
That's Brad Moore. It's Brad Moore.
What is it?
Brad Moore.
Brad Moore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
so
did
you've
the
seen the
cover
Gloom
for
Lurker
he did
piece?
he did the cover for Tomb Mold's Manor of Infinite Forms.
Did he
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah, he did. I think a Morpheus Descends album cover back in the '90s too. He's been around. His shit's like fucking mind blowing.
I'm not sure if
Crazy
we're
with
talking
his
about the same
watercolor.
person. If it's just because you're going off the Art Wizard thing,
Art Wizard is his Instagram
I
handle.
think it's someone similar. There's wizards in his name. I don't think that's the guy.
Okay.
But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like it's he made this excellent painting, and so like I pulled that as my influence to make this logo,
Right.
and there's nothing to do with death metal. It has nothing to
Right.
do with like it's like this interesting synthscape that he's kind of
Nice.
experimenting with.
Nice.
So it was a cool like project to just like help homie out and make like an interesting sidestep. Like I'm not only looking to do death metal artwork. Like
Right.
this has just been kind of my focus lately because it's what I'm passionate about, probably more than some of the other things. So my first art page is like showing all of it,
Yeah.
but this is like kind of a little bit more driven down the center with what I'm doing. So
Yeah, I can always kind of just judge a project based on would 14-year-old me be stoked that I'm going to get to do this? You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
14-year-old me was like, that was when I was getting into death metal. I was getting into underground death metal stuff, and um,
yeah.
You know, I was like, you know, making my own like shitty drawings on computer
Yeah.
paper at that time, and just like a you know, kind of you know, role playing, wanting to be in like a death metal band and stuff. And
Right.
so the idea that I'm doing this now and I'm like working with bands that I fucking love.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's like I'm super grateful to be able to
That's
do that.
awesome.
Like,
I
it's
mean,
like
you
an
deserve it, man. You work really hard, and you really show just how much you care about things with the detail in all of your work, and you can see your influences. It's something that you might not see in other people's artwork, especially in death metal. You might see influences from certain artists, but maybe not what they're pulling from their image bank.
right.
They might just be doing a skull. They might just be doing a skull with a rib cage, a skeleton, and then just kind of building off from there and making weird, gross shit happen around it. But when I see an artist doing more than that, and being on that, like, past that curve, like before that curve, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
to a point where like that's what inspires me, seeing artists that are like really on top of what it is they want, and uh, actually portraying it in their work. Like, it, I can tell that you're getting what you want out of it.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like I am.
yeah, that's
I
good.
want to keep growing. I hope that in 10 years that I'm like topping. You know, I'm hitting my, you know, like I'm not hitting my peak yet. That's what I'm always hoping. Like I'm
That's
not in
what,
my
going
prime
back
just
to
yet.
what we
I'm
were saying
almost there.
before. Yeah,
The peak
like,
is yet to come. So I'm hoping like,
sure.
you know, 10 years I'm like 10 times better than I am now because I'm gonna keep honing my
The only
craft.
way to do it is manifest it. You
Yeah,
will be. That's what you gotta say out
yeah.
loud. Let it
That's
be
what
known.
that's
Let
what
it
I'm
be
looking
said.
for.
You
That's what I'm
will be
always aiming
10 times
for.
better than you were. It's always like funny to look back at pieces that you made a couple of years ago and look at the work that you're doing now. That's always a trip, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Just feel like, oh, wow, I really didn't give a fuck there.
Yeah, you know, it's been funny be having to do the move because one of the things I had to do was like pack up the last couple of years of artwork that hadn't
Yeah,
been like properly packed. So I took a little time to like leaf through the last couple of years of drawings just to kind of see, and it's like, yeah, okay, like it's one was a little bit of a rush job. Now this one I fucking like. You know what I mean? Like, I'll, you know, kind of pulling like, oh, this might get hung up on the wall, you know,
right
because
on. Yeah,
this was a piece I'm particularly proud of. But you know, there's ups and downs in every year that you're working,
sure.
and your hope is that no matter how many ups and downs, the line kind of keeps going up in general.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? The basis that the line keeps going up. So
In some way,
um,
shape, or form, you feel like you've improved.
yeah,
You've learned something. You've
yeah,
grown from it in certain ways. Yeah, for sure.
adding new things to the repertoire. You know,
Yes.
making myself become even more what I am. You know, that's kind of it.
Hell yeah. Well, dude, this has been a super pleasure. It's 7:45. I think we should
Yeah.
probably
Let's
round it
wrap it up.
out.
Yeah,
Um, this has been really great. I really appreciate you taking the time to like
my
hang
pleasure.
out, talk to me about your process, all the things that go through your head, and you know what it is that you're teaching people that are learning how to draw. That's so sick, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking that time.
Well,
It was
thank you.
excellent meeting you.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. Yeah, definitely. I'll be tuning in. I'll be tuning in for future installments of
Yeah, we're
Home
definitely
Terror
going to be
Friday.
doing. I
Sure.
think I want to make sure I announce this before we get off. I want to make sure that I announce the following
Yeah.
Form Terror Friday here. So the next Form Terror Friday will be with Lucas Rigeri. So
Nice.
be sure
Definitely
to
tuning in for that.
check it out. I'm excited to see what's going on with Lucas. It's another. This is another person I've never met. It's going to be a lot of people I've never met.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to get to know artists as I go and do this. But yeah, I'm
Well,
really excited to talk to him about his process, and I'm probably going to ask him what the weirdest shit he does when he's drawing.
yeah, you should make that definitely make that a staple segment.
Weirdest thing you do, and favorite tool that's like out of the ordinary to use or something.
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks so much for having me on. It was a real pleasure to talk to you. It was great to meet you too. I'm stoked to network with somebody else. Always stoked to meet another artist. So
hell yeah.
This was a real pleasure to do. Really great conversation. Thank you so much for having me on, and thanks to everybody who watched us.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'll upload this video. I'll tag you. Feel free to share.
I will.
I wish you guys the best of luck getting everything moved in.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to Pennsylvania. If you ever want to hang, I live in Philadelphia.
Nice, awesome. Yeah,
so,
we're gonna be making the trek out to Philly quite a bit. So
yeah, I mean, there's that show coming through Kung Fu Necktie in December with Frozen Soul, Vomit Forth,
yes,
Fog, Inoculation.
Just
it's possible. If you want to come, I'll buy you a beer. It'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna be there. It's on my list of like shows that are coming through that I'm like, yes, coming through Philly.
Nice. Oh yeah,
so.
Yeah. Hit me up, let me know, and we can hang out.
All right, man. Awesome.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys checking out what I'm doing here. Please check out what I do next week with Lucas Ruggieri. It's going to be a good time. All right. Cheers,
good night.
guys.